Hello and welcome to the History of the Meta Crisis. Today I have the great pleasure of hosting a friend, Professor Phoebe Koundouri, who is a full professor in Economics and Econometrics and Director of Research Laboratory on Socio-Economic and Environmental Sustainability at Athens University of Economics and Business. She is also part-time research professor in Environmental Economics at the Department of Technology Management and Economics of the Technical University of Denmark. More, she is the director of the Sustainable Development Unit at Athena Information Technologies Research Center. Before her election at the Athens University of Economics and Business, she held academic positions at the University of Cambridge, University College London, University of Reading, London School of Economics. Professor Koundouri holds an MPhil and a PhD in Economics and Econometrics from the University of Cambridge. And for her studies, she received a full scholarship from the University of Cambridge and the Cambridge Commonwealth Trust. She is widely recognized as a pioneer in innovative, human-centric, interdisciplinary systems thinking for the sustainable interaction between nature, society, and the economy. She is included within the official Stanford University list of the top 2% of the world's scientists, and she is listed in the 1% of most cited women economists in the world. She has published more than 15 books and more than 600 peer-reviewed scientific articles, and she has participated in more than 100 interdisciplinary research projects with applications in over 120 countries around the world. Well, to say her full bio will take us half the episode today, so let me stop here and welcome my dear friend, Professor Phoebe Koundouri. Phoebe, welcome to the History of the Meta Crisis. For the second time, you did me the honor of initiating this podcast, but unfortunately it was in Greek.
I'm really happy to be with you, to be discussing with you, Alexandros, once again. I find these discussions stimulating and interesting, not just because they are about timely issues, but also because it is quite challenging and engaging to talk with a person like you that has knowledge and field experience in a wide array of crucial issues, which I think allows us to navigate the discussion in a way that our audience can follow, engage, and enjoy. So thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for being here and for your nice work. Would you like to tell us a little bit about your past? You serve in numerous institutions, in numerous positions. You have wide experience in sustainability. Please tell us, drive us through your course life trajectory.
Yes. Well, I was born and raised in Cyprus. I followed the Greek Cypriot education system, which was and still is under the spell of the British education system. So for me, the target was to enter a good UK university, and always my dream has been to become a scientist. I was extremely interested in anything that had to do with mathematics, because I think it's only natural that people get interested in areas where they can do well. And through my journey at the University of Cambridge, I discovered that I had a particular interest. My mind always focused on a particular question: how you bring in different disciplines in order to answer questions that are crucial for humanity. So when I was doing mathematics, I was not truly intrigued by the technicalities of the solution, but I was always intrigued in how you can use them to model an interesting problem and derive solutions for these problems through the transposition of this problem in a well-defined mathematical framework. I've majored in economic statistics and mathematics, and then I understood that one major element of whatever brings welfare to the people, which is the main thrust of economics. Economics is the science of allocating resources in a way that allows you to increase social welfare. And mathematics and statistics are used by economists as tools to better understand the socio-economic system, to better understand how this system can evolve in a way that supports and enhances human welfare. Through my studies, and especially at the final year of my first degree, and then my MPhil, and of course my PhD, I realized that one major element of the socioeconomic system is, of course, not just accounting capital and human capital, but also natural capital. So I was then very interested in interdisciplinary work, bringing together natural sciences, natural capital systems with social and economic capital systems, and integrating these systems in order to understand what would be the pathways that could allow the society, the economy, and of course, the ecosystem to reach and be on a sustainable pathway. Of course, I've been influenced by the best. I've been to, as a student and as a professor, to exceptionally good universities. And if I may say, the UK system has one big strength, which can also be a weakness at some stages, but it's different from other systems, because especially at the postgraduate level and PhD level, you have huge freedom to be as creative as possible. And back in the days that I've started, environmental natural resource economics basically did not exist. But back then, when I said I want to bring in these two disciplines into a common framework and system in order to study a relevant model for supporting human welfare, nobody said, oh, this is not a robust science, this is interdisciplinary, and we are in interdisciplinary work. Nobody said that. They thought that it was risky to invest in such an area, but if you want to do it, do it. So I think that this freedom of thought, together with the need for rigor and excellence, was the basic reason that I could be as creative and at the end of the day happy with what I do. And after my PhD in Cambridge, I taught there, then I taught at the University College London, then at University of Reading, then at London School of Economics. I had visiting teaching positions in various places in Europe and in the US. I came in Greece. I taught, and I'm still a full professor at the university, at the Athens University of Economics and Business. And since 1997, I've created a research team which works very much on interdisciplinary issues. The main focus of my work is to pioneer interdisciplinary systems between society, economy, and nature, and provide human-centric solutions for the sustainable development of the interplay between these systems. With my team and I have been very successful in attracting funding for our work, because what we do is relevant for real problem solutions. At the moment, the team is called Alliance of Excellence for Research and Innovation in Euphoria, in sustainability. We are more than 200 researchers, attracted more than 100 plus research funding projects. This is competitive research funding from the European Commission and many other international and national institutions and organizations. Over the last 25 or more years, now it's 27 years, we have attracted more than $500 million of funding. And basically, Euphoria brings together the institutions that I lead, 4 research institutions, 5 innovation accelerators. We believe a lot in innovation acceleration, because research and innovation projects produce the innovation, but then this innovation has to be accelerated to the market in order to be adopted and used by the economy and society, and then you have an impact. The Alliance also includes 5 science policy networks, including the United Nations Sustainable Development Solutions Network, which is the biggest network in the world of universities working on sustainability solutions, 2,000 universities. In that framework, which is under the auspices of the UN General Secretary, I lead the European quarters with about 900 institutional members and the Global Climate Hub. I will come back to the Global Climate Hub, but let me just say here that its mission is to identify detailed pathways of the optimal mixture of technology policies and financial and fiscal measures that will allow the countries to reach climate neutrality and climate resilience by 2050. And the final section of the Alliance of Excellence that I lead is a section on academies and associations, scientific associations. I am elected member of the World Academy of Art and Science, Academia Europaea, and the European Academy of Art and Science, and an awardee of the Athens Academy. So I bring all these academies together with some associations, the European Association of Environmental Resource Economics, for which I'm the president, and the World Council on Environmental Resource Economic, where I serve as the chair. These are global and European institutions with the most recognized and influential scientists, and I try to bring them together to support initiatives that derive from the research and innovation we do from our funded project. And I think that we are successful in attracting funding for our work because it's not just a project and then we implement the project and it's finished, but we follow up on that in terms of accelerating the innovations of the projects to the market, and also upscaling the results of the projects into European and global initiatives that at the end of the day have an impact. Throughout my life, I am proud of three things. First, that I created a large research team that employs talented researchers. And I'm particularly proud about this with regards to the Greek researchers, because I believe that if this team was not here, they would have been, they would probably decide to go abroad. So it's about restricting the brain drain of talented people. The second thing that I'm proud is that my work has been recognized as a scientist with many scientific distinctions. And I'm proud of that because this is basically a new field. It's a new way of integrating different fields. And it's not easy to be accepted. And it's not easy to be accepted, especially if you are a woman coming from some corner of Europe, between Europe and Middle East. So that took a lot of confidence in what I thought it was right, which is not always easy to retain when what you bring in the picture is somehow innovative and somehow challenging for the status quo, which is working in the silos of discipline. And of course, the other thing I'm proud about is that I've worked in more than 120 countries, designing solutions, technological, economic, social solutions that have an impact in the everyday life of the people. So all in all, I have been lucky, but luck usually, it's a good friend with those that work extremely hard and are extremely stubborn.
Well, what a life story. My first reaction is, how do you handle within 24 hours per day? There are so many posts and so interesting fields.
Well, the how has to do with what I already mentioned, the amazingly talented team. Science is teamwork. Science is teamwork. The leading scientists might be those that have the more explicit ideas and probably are strong enough to present those ideas and defend those ideas when there is no mature framework for them to accept it. This is what you can do in science. Whereas, for example, in politics, you need to have a mature situation in order to implement the change. In science, it is important to have maturity of an idea and a new framework, but scientists can bring in a new idea and advocate for this idea and prove this idea, even when the academic ecosystem is not ready. Actually, this is what a good idea consists of. An idea that can be helpful but has not been articulated before. So whatever a leading scientist with this idea can think of and do, it will never be enough without a very strong, committed, and talented team. And in my life, I've been able to identify talented scientists, and I have been able to support them to work only on science. This is important, that scientists have enough funding for doing their work, because their work needs devotion. Sometimes it is capturing most of their energy and time, so it is quite expensive in terms of other areas of life. So it is quite important that they can be financially supported well enough in order to be able to focus on what they do. And of course, if you have talented people around you, then the influx of ideas is continuous. And talent means people who create new ideas, but are also technically equipped to implement those ideas. So it's all about the team. It's all about the team. There is no such thing as a leading scientist that can do it all by her or himself.
So your work is actually applied systems thinking. It's an approach that you cultivate your own scientific field.
Yes. We cultivate our own scientific field based on what we believe is a relevant framework for solving the problems that we are facing today. And most of the problems we are facing today are interdisciplinary. So you need an interdisciplinary framework to understand them and provide solutions for these problems. For example, in a macro scale, when you think of the world, we have major economic problems, major environmental problems, major geopolitical problems. So in order to understand these problems and provide solution pathways towards sustainability, because this is what we are looking for. We are looking a mode of interaction between the economy, the society, and the environment that will allow people in this generation to live well, and at the same time not reduce the probability of the next generations to live well as well. So it is really interdisciplinary, and it is really complex. So we are looking at these complex systems in order to derive solution pathways that can support the welfare of people. So in our discussions, I've mentioned that we have many economic problems. A major one is, of course, the huge difference between the growth and development between the global south and the developed countries. But even in the developed world, we have major economic problems, which have to do with the slow growth rates, inflationary pressures, shrinking fiscal spaces. We don't have the space to invest in the solutions that we need. And also the fact that 1/3 of the countries around the world are facing default. And this economic situation is further aggravated, is worsened by the fact that we are also facing the climate crisis, the destabilization of climate that transposes into billions of infrastructural catastrophes and economic disruption, and also into hundreds of thousands of deaths. And this climate crisis, this stabilization of the climate, which is so catastrophic because it translates into increased severity and increased frequency of floods, heat waves, forest fires, tsunamis, all these extreme weather events. It's further is worsened by the disruption of ecosystem resilience. So we are facing, together with the climate crisis, ecosystem collapse, the collapse of the natural capital on which our consumption and production is based. And all of this, the economic and the natural crisis, reflects on the society in increased inequalities, both within countries, between income groups, between geographical areas, but also between countries. And of course, these increased inequalities are leading to geopolitical pressures, and geopolitical pressures lead to increased warfare. So all this is really a very difficult puzzle to solve. In 2015, we agreed on the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, 17 goals, 169 targets that basically indicate how you need to manage the different elements of life, both in terms of the environment. We have 4 SDGs that are about the biosphere, the SDG on climate, SDG 13, the SDG on land use, SDG 15, the SDG on marine use, SDG 14, and the SDG on clean water sanitation, SDG 6. So out of the 17, 4 concern the natural capital, the biosphere. Then we have the remaining SDGs being focused on the economy and the society. So society has 8 SDGs. Economy has another 4 SDGs. And then we have the last SDG, which is SDG 17, which is about partnerships for the goal. So I've said this because this is our global agenda, the only global agenda for supporting human welfare. And 163 countries have agreed that this is our solution pathway. I've already also made the distinction between society, economy, and the biosphere, just to make it clear that the SDGs are not an environmental agenda. They are an agenda for the welfare of people. It's a very human-centric agenda that tries to indicate in an explicit way, as explicit as possible, what is that we need in order to survive and in order to support the welfare of people. So a human-centric agenda that brings together the elements that are crucial for supporting human welfare, the natural capital, the social capital, and the economic capital. And of course, we've been working intensively on identifying the scientific models and solving these models that would allow us to translate this vision, which is the 17 development goals, sustainable development goals, into detailed pathways for each and every country. What should each and every country do in order to reach these goals? What kind of technologies it should use, what kind of investments it needs, what kind of fiscal and financial instruments it needs, and what kind of policies it needs in order to reach these goals. Of course, as you say, reaching these goals is not easy. It's the most holistic agenda that has ever been created. Holistic in terms of integrating all elements that support human welfare. It's difficult enough to model, let alone to implement. And although as scientists, we work a lot on this agenda and we have solutions, it's one thing to have the solutions and the pathways, and a very different thing to actually get these solutions implemented. Because in order to implement these solutions, you need to engage in a co-design process with all other stakeholders. It's not enough for the scientists to understand, model, and produce a solution. You need to involve all stakeholders at different scales, local, regional, national, international, to co-design and refine the solution pathways. You need to involve the politicians, the policymakers, the businesses, the financial institutions, the civil society, the technology developers, the investors in this process. To engage all of these people, they need to understand what are the problems and what are the solutions. In order to understand, they need to have the capacity to understand. So we also fall into an explicit need for more education and training and upskilling and reskilling, so that all these stakeholders that are basically the people that will implement the solution pathways understand the problem, understand the solutions, and feel that they are equipped to be part of a new socio-economic system that implements these solutions. And that's why we, as a team, Euphoria works a lot on upskilling, reskilling, and education, because it is the knowledge and skills that we need in order to convince the people that the change is needed. Nobody will advocate for a change, for such a big and holistic change that is needed, if they don't feel confident enough that they can be part of this change, that they can be part of the labor for this change.
I totally agree with you, Phoebe, but the science is quite straightforward for some 50 years now. We know what is happening to climate, to the world, to the economies, but then again, nothing changes. We talk about sustainable development, And I wonder if this is a contradiction in terms. Can we really speak about sustainable growth of the economy, of the society? Because it seems that we have exhausted the ecosystem. Biodiversity is getting smaller and smaller. The oceans are getting ossificated without oxygen. They are in a bad shape. Global warming is speeding up. We have had this target of 1.5 C at the Paris Agreement. It's already obsolete. So what does not work to the system that we have created? We have all these institutions, some funding, not a lot of funding. We need much more funding in order to address these big issues. The governments, the politicians are not willing to put these agendas forward. The people that are putting these agendas straight forward are not elected in most cases, which is a big problem. People don't want to listen to the truth, to the hard truths, to the hard realities, it seems to me. What is your sense of the situation?
I agree that we have a very difficult problem in our hands. We have reached planetary boundaries. At a point that might be irreversible, and at a point that really compromises the survival of humans. Because the change in the conditions of the planet is happening at such a pace that we don't have the capacity to adapt to it. This is our problem. It's not the first time that change is happening with regards to planetary conditions, with regards to ecosystems, with regards to the climate. But this is a time that we don't seem to have the technology, the means to adapt to the pace of the change. So we are facing a true existential problem. Now, we are also lagging behind in terms of implementing the Sustainable Development Goals. If we want to agree that these goals are enough for sustaining our future and our existence, then we are definitely lagging behind in implementing the solutions that will allow us to perform against these goals and, as a consequence, sustain our existence. Now, why are we lagging behind? First of all, let me say that although the science has identified these problems of climate change, ecosystem collapse, economic problems, social problems, it is only recently that we are confident enough to say that we have integrated holistic solutions to these problems. It is fair to say that technological progress has a very fast pace these days, but our problems are not only technological. So within the technological problems, we also have to come with the technological solutions that are relevant for reducing CO2 emissions, that are relevant for preserving natural resources, that are relevant for increasing productivity while reducing environmental footprint, and so on. All these technological solutions need to be implemented in a framework that is also supporting a more holistic and integrated framework that allows sustainable interaction between the economic system, the social system, and the natural system. So technology is part of the solution. And with regards to technology, we have a fast pace of technological advancement, and it's crucial that we have it. It is crucial that we have it, and we never had it before as a human race. So it's a big hope for our ability to achieve sustainability. But within the framework of change, we don't only need technological solutions. We need fiscal and financial solutions to finance the implementation of solutions, to finance capacity building of the labor force to be able to implement the solutions. We need policies. We need social solutions, changes in the governance. We need to think about solidarity between the developed world and the global south. So we need a much richer optimal mixture of solutions than just technology. And let me say that it is easier to create a technological solution and accelerate it to the market and convince adoption of this solution. And it is much more difficult to achieve a transformational change in the social system, in the economic system. And this is what is hindering the change. So what we need is not just to come up with some solution that captures CO2 and stores it, and in this way we clean the atmosphere. We need a huge effort to transform whole continents in producing and consuming in a different way, so that fossil fuels are not used, circular economy is introduced, nature-based solutions are introduced, e-mobility is introduced, governance is such that all voices are heard within countries, between countries. It is only last year that the African Union is part of G20. The whole of a continent was not part of the forum where the big economic solutions and decisions are discussed. So it is a more radical transformational change that is needed, that needs a lot of international collaboration in order to change the policy framework, the production and consumption behavior, and also the understanding that these very complicated models that bring together the economy, the society, and nature should be the status quo of thinking framework. It is complicated, it is difficult. The capacity for using it is not widespread, but it's the only way to think about solutions in order to achieve the transformational change that is needed. So I'm going to say that we are not doing a lot because what needs to be done is a huge non-linearity in the way we growth, in the way we socioeconomically understand how growth should be implemented. And at the moment, there is no widespread capacity in terms of understanding what needs to be done and in terms of implementing what needs to be implemented. And because there is no widespread understanding, The politicians cannot agree on it. The businessmen are reluctant. The financial institutions are somewhat greenwashing instead of really getting to the roots to the problem. The civil society is lost, and it's only some scientists that have really gone make the big step of opening their research to a wider interdisciplinary approach that can see the holistic picture, can see the difficulty of all this, and are trying to convey how the restructuring of the socio-economic system should take place. So it's a very, very difficult problem. It's a huge transformation that the solution of the problem calls for, and there is no capacity to understand the transformation and no capacity to implement the transformation. So I'm not at all surprised that we are not making progress fast enough. Some progress is made. For example, the European Green Deal, it's a huge step forward. It's a huge step forward for implementing the SDGs. It's the best policy transposition, detailed policy transposition of the SDGs. But you can see that even if you transpose the vision of the SDGs into detailed policies, then in order to implement these detailed policies, you need to first engage the stakeholders. For example, the changes in the common agriculture policy were never understood by the stakeholders, were never really co-designed with the stakeholders so that they understand how they can make the new investments that will allow them to have a production that is consistent with sustainability in terms of producing, but at the same time preserving the ecosystems, having a sensible land use, sensible climate neutral production approaches, looking at the whole value chain of your product and making sure that this is the most efficient, circular, net zero value chain that you can sell better, increasing your market share, probably increasing your prices, because people are starting to understand the importance of climate neutrality, of ecosystem resilience, of the effects on their health of the quality production of an agricultural product. So it's a very difficult goal, and I'm not surprised at all that we are not making enough progress. And it is true that progress has been made, but not at the pace that we needed. Climate change is at the verge of 1.5. After 1.5, we will be facing extreme weather events and sea level rise that we are not prepared, we cannot be prepared to adapt to. And all of this will lead to increased economic crisis. Increased economic crisis lead to increased geopolitical crisis, and it's really not looking good.
And that's why we're talking actually about the meta crisis. We are at the podcast on the history of the meta crisis. Yes, it is a predicament, and we cannot come up. It seems to me that we don't have the time frame to address these issues in really short time. We people, the human beings, are reluctant to change. We don't like change, especially when it comes in very short notice. So I'm not so sure that we will manage to go through it. But since you are thinking about these issues, constructively and with a lot of scientists all around you, speaking with them about these issues. If you would have to picture, to create the ideal situation for us to cope with the meta crisis, what would that be? What is lacking? What is the essential part that you think that would be a catalyst for the whole process?
Cooperation and collaboration. Because we have the knowledge, science has the knowledge, and technology can produce the solutions. And we can also produce the financial and fiscal solutions. We can also produce the social solutions. And the money is there as well, right? Considering both public and private money. So we have understood the problems, we have most of the solutions, and we have the money to finance the solutions. So this is already very, very good. What we are lacking is the ability for these solutions that we have and we can finance to be implemented. And this inability basically derives from two things. The first thing is collaboration. The solutions, some of the solutions are local in nature and they can be implemented more easily. But most of our problems are regional or global. So in order to be implemented, they need collaboration. They need the political leadership to collaborate for the implementation of these solutions. And this seems to be difficult because we have a lack of visionary global leadership at exactly the point in time in the history of people where most of the problems are global. And it is in this space, it is also important to understand that it is not only about the developed world. A crucial player is the global South. A crucial player is our emerging economies, India, China, Africa, Latin America. So we need to be clear that unless we collaborate globally, we find a way to enhance the capacity, the socio-economic capacity of the global South in terms of really restructuring the global financial architecture in order to direct resources for the development of the global South. And the first resources that will be directed to the global South, in general, resources should be SDG based, so to achieve SDG stimulus in the global South. The developed world has the ability to engage in interesting and very profitable and very welfare enhancing and trade enhancing relationships with the global South. So we should think very clearly about the restructuring, the global financial architecture, both with regards to the multilateral banks, in order to enhance the ability of multilateral banks to give cheap, long-run loans to the global south in order to be able to invest in education. The faster growth enhancing investment is to put all kids at school. If you put them at school, then they have an education, they can have a productive life, they are out of crime, out of the streets, out of very difficult family development structures. So it is important for multilateral institutions to be able to give long-run, low-cost, even zero-cost loans to the global south. And these loans can be public-private partnerships. The private sector can also finance this, because once the global south engages in a growth-enhancing strategy, then it becomes a big new market that can increase growth not only in the global south, but across the world. And here I should say something about how I perceive growth. Growth is not just GDP. Growth should be calculated with an index that allows the integration of financial progress, economic progress, social progress, and environmental resilience and sustainability. There is a lot of work within the environmental and natural resource economies on growth accounting, which integrates together with the classical GDP and financial and fiscal elements, natural capital, social capital, cultural capital, even spiritual capital in the growth of countries. And as a team, we do a lot of work on how we measure, quantify, and monetize these other elements of capital and include them in the concept of growth. So growth is a very holistic index that showcases the ability of a country to be on a sustainable pathway. So one element is collaboration within countries and between countries, within the developed world and between the developed world and the global south, and collaboration in all elements that have to do with fiscal and financial sustainability, elements that have to do with social and economic sustainability, elements that have to do with environmental and ecosystem sustainability. And our models show that if you have a holistic and international engagement under this integrated concept of sustainability, then you can achieve enhanced growth for everybody. And what you produce is enough to allow mitigating any regressive effects of the vulnerable. But of course, this needs a huge transformation. A huge transformation of the existing socioeconomic systems. So cooperation is one thing, but the roots of this cooperation direct to the other thing that is needed, which is capacity. You need to educate the people and give them the knowledge and the skills to serve this transformation. This is not there yet. We have done a study, an artificial intelligence study, that asks the question, Suppose that in 2030, we have achieved the implementation of the green and digital transformation across Europe and beyond. What are the skills and occupations that are needed? And we find that 85% of the skills and occupations that are needed in order to implement the green and digital transformation, as it has been drafted in the already voted for policies of the European Green Deal, of the industrial policy of Europe, the digital policy of Europe, the agricultural policy of Europe, we find that 85% of the skills and occupations that are needed to implement the already voted for policies in Europe are not here yet. And we are supposed to implement all this between today and 2030. So if we don't have the knowledge, if we don't have the skills, if we don't have the occupations that are needed for the transformation, then how on earth is this transformation going to take place? So for me, it's another big decision that needs to be taken at national and international level. The change in the educational curricula, especially at university levels, stop working in the silos of disciplines, really give a big push to interdisciplinarity and the new skills and occupations that are needed to implement the sustainability transition. And then through this knowledge, the explicit engagement and commitment from everybody, the politicians, the businessmen, the financial institutions, the civil society as a whole, will become natural. They will understand what they need to do in order to accelerate the transition and why they need to accelerate the transition. At the moment, it's just a bunch of scientists claiming that we need to make this transformation. This is how we are going to make the transformation. We make explicit the pathways, but there is no capacity to understand and implement these pathways from anybody across the stakeholders. So we need capacity and collaboration.
I agree with you. Well, I believe you have described very well the tragedy of the status quo, which is leading to the tragedy of the commons.
Yes.
This is the very essence of the thing. We have nation states that are defending their national interest. As long as there are a lot of different national interests, they are going to be conflicting, which leads us to zero-sum mindsets. And this is the very essence of the meta crisis. Let me take you to, as we're running out of time, let me take you to some questions about the young people that you are working with. You are teaching to universities all around the world, to young people that are the social group that is going to be most affected by the meta crisis. What is their feeling of the situation? And how do they respond to it? What is the feedback that they are giving you?
Yes, youth is the most important part of our societies. I think youth in our days have lots of information. They have deep understanding of how connected the world is. And this is a privilege to understand this, because I think that most of our tragedies, our generation tragedies, and even the tragedies before our generation that I think were the biggest, because this is the previous generation, this is basically when all the difficulties started, both especially with regards to ecosystems and climate. was the lack of understanding of the interconnectivity, the lack of understanding of how small the world is. I think now youth understands this and has a lot of information and needs empowerment. Youth has the energy and the inclination to change. Youth is as innovative as it has never been in previous years. Youth should claim the leadership that it deserves in order to infiltrate all elements of economic and social decision-making with their energy and their understanding of interconnectivity, which basically means their understanding for collaboration. I think the two strengths of our youth, which are very different from what it was in the past, in the previous generation, is this understanding of interconnectivity and innovativeness. This focus on bringing in innovative ideas, startups, trying to be the change that they want to bring. So we need to empower this. And we need to empower this not just in the developed world. There are huge bursts of youth in India, in China, in the global south. This is a huge power that, if empowered towards this holistic understanding of development, it can really make the change. I would say that giving the capacity and the empowerment to the young people to be this transformational change is the one crucial element in these very critical historical times that can enable higher collaboration, more innovativeness, and at the end of the day, achieving the transformation that is needed. And this empowerment can only come through education. This means directing serious resources to education, to revising the education system so that they can support the transformation that we want to achieve, empowering these youth to further develop and implement their innovative ideas in terms of technology, but also in terms of governance and social structures that will bring the change. So education, upskilling, reskilling, innovation capacity, and giving the pace to the youth for leadership. And it can be leadership in all elements. It can be scientific leadership, it can be technological leadership, it can be political leadership, it can be leadership in the business sector, in the financial sector, in civil society structure. But give them the empowerment, the capacity in order to be active leaders. It is very important. And also allow the restructuring of our institutions, for example, UN obviously needs to restructure and be more efficient with regards to enhancing collaboration, supporting collaboration, and be able to intervene to scale down geopolitical pressures and non-sustainability pressures. There we need youth to be more explicit, youth participation to be more explicit and more empowered. And this is relevant for all institutions across the world. What is failing us is the inability of the existing institutions to engage in this transformational change. And this is where we need to be careful when restructuring our institutions, the UN, the multilateral banks in terms of the financial architecture. We need to give space to youth.
Yes, I totally agree. This is actually a paradox of our era. We live in the epoch where we have the youngest generations, the most numbered youngest generations, and they are not actually represented in our political systems. They are less represented than they should be. It seems to me that an oligarchy of older men, white older men, had grasped the power and don't let go.
Yes, it's the same for women. It's the same for youth. It's also the same for institutions from the global south. They are not equally represented. So we need all voices to be heard. And we also need to understand that it's through collaboration that the survival will be achieved.
This is a hopeful message that we're closing with. I totally agree with you that youth is the answer. We have screwed up big time, the older generations, and we are reluctant to change. Let's put our bet on the future generations, that they will do better than us. Let's try to give them the tools, empower them, give them the necessary knowledge, and assist them in creating the change that we all need and we all search for.
Indeed. I will not say anything more. It is our duty, it is an existential duty to empower the young generation to achieve the transformational change that is needed for the sustainability transition.
An existential duty, I love this phrase. Phoebe, thank you very much for your time being here. I know you are overbooked, so I double appreciate it. We've been trying to do this podcast for quite 2 months now, but you are all around the world. I wish you the best for your next trips and all your efforts.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We have many important events coming up. G20, G7, the Biodiversity COP, the Climate COP. We do hope that, in the spirit of more collaboration, explicit solutions will be adopted and then implemented. Thank you so much.
Whenever you have new announcements to make, please consider this podcast your spot.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All the best, Phoebe. Thank you very much. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
So this was my conversation with Professor Phoebe Koundouri, a leading scientist at the intersection of technology, society, economy, and politics. I hope you found our discussion interesting and stimulating. Please stay tuned to subscribe. Hit the button below, subscribe to the YouTube and Patreon channel. And if you want to support this podcast, please contact with me directly through email. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned. There are more interesting discussions coming. All the best for now.